Dix, my wife Dixie, the other analyst in this team, reminded me that I had left something out in the first chat on emotions, and that is, where are the emotions felt in the body? Sadness is felt in the face, as Darwin pointed out. It's felt in a little hunching thing. If you were in a marketplace in Syria and a bomb came in and tore your baby to shreds, you, the mother or father, would just be devastated, and you would lean over and you would weep. And if you were knowing who had sent that explosive device to kill your child, you would feel angry and you would want to get back at him. And anger has a thrust forward. Scare is almost a shaking. Oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. I've lost all visuals for the future of how I should be, what I should think, how I should act. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Happiness is more relaxed. Now, there are different forms of happiness. My happiness is really one of solitude. I love listening to Beethoven's music. I love getting out in nature. I love reading books. I love poetry. I mean, of all things, poetry. And I love being with people, and I'm very comfortable, but I'm not a real expressive, happy person. Some are more expressive. They are into laughter and frivolity. I'm not particularly that way. Excited, of course, is where you're anticipating the future, and it's similar to scare, but it's real positive in terms of the future. And you just want to run towards it. And you can see children get all excited on a playground. It's just wonderful to watch them. Or to see, even at a mall, a child just excitedly running in front of the mother and father and looking at all this stuff, or excitedly running for the mother and father. And tenderness is very clear to those who have held babies, that they are a treasure, and you're so thankful for them, and so you love them. I once developed what I call emotional exercise, because I got tired of people being so darn slow about learning emotions. And so I said, now everybody stand up in this group, and I would go through, and I would say, now copy me, so you learn what the emotion is in your body. That's sadness. And so they would bend over, and they would feel like that. That's deep grief. That's mourning. That's sadness. And I'd go through each of the emotions so that people could begin to learn them in their musculature. Now, there is bad news, very bad news, and almost terrible news that we have to encounter when we go into the observation of emotions. The first bad news is that it's very rare for somebody to know their emotions. Now, while you can see them on television in Sumatra or wherever, Somalia or Beirut or wherever, it's very rare for a person in the modern world, a product of Western education, to know their emotions. Now, the bad news gets to be very bad news when you look at the educational institutions. They are all about passing on reasonable data, so that you will find that teachers, professors, educators of all sorts do not know their emotions. That's very bad news. Now for the worst news of all. The scientists who are spending their lives on observation and studying minute particulars in terms of biology or physics or mathematics or chemistry don't know their emotions. They're lost in the reason of their particular set of skills, their knowledge base. So the worst news is that engineers, scientists, and here is really a tragic thing, and most mental health workers do not know their emotions. So I don't know how to emphasize sufficiently the importance of observing emotions when you encounter, my goodness, people do not know their emotions. And their emotions are the way out, the way to liberation, the freedom of soul, the freedom of being, and particularly how to relate in a beautiful and loving, long-term manner. Now, I want to say again, the reason for obliviousness is reason. Because we have just emphasized for the last 200 years in the world, enlightenment, knowing stuff. Like if you read, well, now see here I'm going off on one of my tangents. Francis Bacon, he says, just deal with information. And what they were doing is they were running against the many centuries where when there was difficulty in understanding, they said, well, God understands it. And so they didn't have to get particular in terms of how the body works, how blood works in coursing through your body, how your brain works. And so these people are, the scientists, the mathematicians, the engineers, are studying particulars. And in terms of mental health, too frequently people will go in terms of categories where a person is put in a little box. So one of the things we have to look at is thinking. All people with a functioning brain can think. And all people with a functioning thinking brain develop a thought system, a little philosophy. Everyone is at least a partial philosopher. And what they do is they define what their identity is. Their identity is based on their experience, their people with whom they identify, with the models that they see in life, the information they receive in educational institutions, their foci, what they are really interested in, their particular obsession, their passion, information of all sorts that comes from being encounters with people and television and computers and iPhones and whatever. And so they have their identity, who they are, and they begin to think that their thinking and their observations, their perceptions are really good. In fact, they may well be better than anybody else's. So in this box of identity, we have a philosophy, but we also have a little bit of narcissism, where we think we know better in terms of physics, or we know better in terms of cell biology, or we know better in terms of love. Everyone, as a minister, I learned everyone knew everything about love in their 20s and 30s. They were experts. Love had to do with having free sexual relationship to a great deal of the men. And then, of course, when the women had babies, love had to do more with cherishing and tenderness. But this box, this thought box that every person has, this philosophy, gets to be the basis of homeostasis about a person. And so what does this have to do with feelings? Is they are a little scared of opening the box and sharing their primary concerns. If someone has a crazy political philosophy and they are adamant about it, they can find some nutty radio talk person who says this is the truth, this is the truth, this is the truth, and they put that in their box. And you start to say, look, let's discuss the premises, the basic foundation of where you got that philosophy, where you got that information. They will fight you to the death. They know the truth. It's in their thought box, their philosophy. Now, what happens in life when they want to avoid this box of thought losing its balance, because it gives homeostasis to the personality. They have a sense of balance as long as they can believe what that Radiohead or what that philosopher said or what that science said, then they have homeostasis. And so they resist at all costs somebody saying, let's go ahead and consider that. No, they've got their opinion box. They know about psychology and psychotherapy. They like Carl Jung better than Sigmund Freud. They like Alfred Adler better than someone else. They like the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual. And the box is closed. Now, what my wife and I have found out is that people come to psychotherapy when their homeostasis is really thrown off. They want balance back. And so they are willing to open the box. And you could see their emotions, and they would answer emotional questions because they wanted to come back to being safe and secure in terms of their personality. Well, what I'm saying in this lecture is that it's difficult to observe emotions, but you won't get anywhere in terms of scientific approach to human personality or human nature without learning about emotions. Therefore, you have to learn how to study healthy people when they have them, which gives you a case for sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender, sashay. And then you have to see when an emotion comes up, and you can see it, as Darwin said, through the eye muscles, the face muscles. But you can also see it by hundreds of body tensions, shifting of their body, movement of their foot, their leg, their arm, to redirect, to stand up, to immediately change their voice. They're keeping that homeostasis. But you can think, hey, I bet they were dealing with sadness. And so you can ask a question, this is really sad, or you can state it, this is sad, and ask them, do you ever feel sad about it? You have to be very cautious because a person is very concerned about keeping their homeostasis. Except in therapy, that damn if they don't open it up and start dealing with their entire philosophy of life. So to observe emotions, and observe real emotions, it's tough to get beyond the curtain or to look in the box because people will hide their emotions. Emotions are the triggers for the thoughts of why they like that Radiohead, why they accept that philosopher, why they love that teacher, why they went into biological research, why they became a mortician, why they did any of the vocational options. Maybe they were poor as a kid, they wanted money, they were scared to return to poverty, and so their whole life is built around obtaining money. But then all of a sudden they lose their money and they come to therapy and they're willing to look more at what their basic philosophy comes about in terms of the emotions. Now, I want to confess that my wife was much better in noticing emotions than I, but I know that that is the key to learning human nature, to learning psychology, and to being a redemptive, therapeutic person that heals souls. So the first thing is real emotions are are sad, angry, scared, happy, excited, tender. That is what's basic to being an authentic human being. And so this ends Chat 2 of Lesson 2 on emotions.